Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's look at the top headlines this hour. Poland's Prime Minister says a huge number of Russian drones violated its airspace during strikes on western Ukraine, calling it an unprecedented act of aggression. Belarus also reports shooting down drones overnight, claiming they were thrown off course by electronic jamming and warning Poland of objects headed its way. Israel strikes Hamas leaders in Qatar's capital Doha, killing 6, including a Qatari security officer, though Hamas says its top team survived. Qatar condemns the attack as a blatant violation of international law, while Prime Minister Netanyahu insists there will be no immunity for Hamas leaders. French police arrest dozens as protesters from a new Block Everything movement disrupt highways and traffic across the country. The demonstrations, organised on social media, draw comparisons to the 2018 Yellow Vest uprising against President Macron's economic reforms. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen proposes using frozen Russian assets to fund a reparations loan for Ukraine without seizing the assets themselves. She tells lawmakers Russia must pay for its war and that the cash balances from immobilized funds can be channeled to Kyiv. US President Donald Trump says his administration is negotiating to remove trade barriers with India and will speak to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the coming weeks. Trump strikes a more optimistic tone, expressing hope the two sides can finalize a deal after weeks of friction. French President Emmanuel Macron names 39-year-old Defence Minister Sébastien Lecornu as Prime Minister, signalling continuity with his pro-business agenda. The pick, a loyalist, could alienate left-wing allies and leave Macron reliant on far-right support in Parliament. Soldiers patrol Kathmandu as an indefinite curfew grips Nepal's capital after days of deadly anti-graft protests that forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign. The unrest, sparked by a social media ban, left 19 dead when police used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse demonstrators. Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog announced a deal to resume inspections at facilities damaged by the US and Israeli strikes in June, though details remain unclear. Tehran warns the agreement will collapse if Europe reimposes sanctions, even as it faces pressure to account for enriched uranium stockpiles. Okay, we have some breaking news coming out of the developing situation in Poland. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has said that Poland has been asked to evoke Article 4 of NATO treaty. Article 4 of the NATO treaty allows any member state to call for consultation over military matters when the, quote, territorial integrity, political independence or security of any of the parties is threatened. We are now joined by Glenn Grant, who is an ex-advisor to the Ukrainian Defence Minister, and he joins us live from Riga in Latvia. Glenn, thank you very much for joining us on this developing situation. Glenn, Poland, a NATO member, and the possibility of Article 4 being triggered. What are your thoughts on how this situation has developed this morning?
Well, we knew this attack was going to come, didn't we? I mean, it was just a matter of time, especially after the sort of the weak responses from in previous weeks to hybrid attacks and to some drones going over into Poland and a helicopter into Estonia. So it was inevitable. If Article 4 or Article 5 was not invoked, then it will be such a sign of weakness that I think that tomorrow we'd see even more drones on their way. So I think that Article 4 is the least, negotiations is at least that should happen. And hopefully now the NATO countries will realize that the war is actually happening, and it is a war. It's not just something that they can shrug off. And the fact that it's gone into Poland, which is, you know, which is not exactly the closest country to Russia, should be a double warning. I think that you'll see the German Chancellor taking the lead here and actually pushing the other countries to realise that we have to do something, and we can't just let this ride.
Glenn, do stay with us as we have further updates from the situation. Polish President Nawrocki has described the recent drone incidents as an unprecedented moment in NATO's history and announced a Security Council meeting within 48 hours to address the situation. Poland confirmed its forces shot down Russian drones over its airspace, marking the first direct engagement with Russian assets since 2022 and the conflict began in Ukraine. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said Poland's airspace was violated by a huge number of drones, which the military described as unprecedented and an act of aggression. Let's in fact listen in to Tusk's statements.
Do naruszenia przestrzeni powietrznej, polskiej przestrzeni powietrznej przez dużą liczbę rosyjskich dronów. Te drony, które stanowiły bezpośrednie zagrożenie, zostały zestrzelone. Mamy do czynienia najprawdopodobniej z prowokacją na dużą skalę, ale równocześnie jesteśmy w konsultacjach z naszymi sojusznikami. Jestem w stałym kontakcie z sekretarzem generalnym NATO, tak aby przez najbliższych kilka godzin, dni i w dalszej przyszłości równie skutecznie jak dzisiaj w nocy działać w przypadku tego typu zagrożeń. Jest to pierwszy przypadek, kiedy doszło do zestrzelenia rosyjskich dronów nad terytorium państwa NATO i dlatego wszyscy nasi sojusznicy sytuację traktują bardzo poważnie. Nie odnotowaliśmy żadnych ofiar.
Meanwhile, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization says it is not treating the drone incursion into Poland as a Russian attack, despite early signs pointing to an intentional move. According to reports, 6 to 10 Russian drones crossed into Polish airspace overnight. For the first time, NATO aircraft engaged potential threats inside Allied skies. Polish F-16S, Dutch 35S and Italian AWACS surveillance planes and NATO refueling aircraft all took part in the operation. NATO's Patriot defence systems picked up the drones on radar but did not fire. The North Atlantic Council is meeting today to review the response. Secretary-General Mark Rutte is in touch with Polish leaders, with NATO consulting closely with Warsaw. Glenn joins us once again. Glenn, NATO says it is not treating this as a Russian attack, even though early signs suggest that these multiple drone incursions were intentional. Is the alliance downplaying to avoid risk of escalation?
Well, I think it's a bit silly because, I mean, it's clearly an attack. And all that does, their words do, is make Putin escalate further because he realizes that NATO is weak. And the only thing that will stop Putin is a punch on the nose. And if NATO is not going to punch him on the nose and says, oh, don't worry, it's not an attack, then he's going to do it again. And he'll do it again, maybe harder and maybe somewhere else. So what they're saying is dangerous. I'm sorry, but it's really, really dangerous and does nothing for our security at all. So I worry about this.
What do you think Russia is viewing this as? Obviously, we've said that NATO hasn't viewed this as an attack, but we can now say that we have 19, Tusk said there was 19 drone incursions into Polish airspace overnight. How do you think that the Kremlin is viewing the reaction from both Poland and NATO, Glenn?
Well, I think that, I mean, putting 19 drones in that is clearly an attack, and what they're looking at to see is how do we deal with 19, and do they need to put more in if they're going to attack properly, or you know, can we actually deal with 19 drones? And they were not all shot down, so Russia will see this as probably that they're going to need to put more in next time. But they're going to be laughing at NATO's words. I'm sorry, but this is an attack. It's a serious attack, and to suggest that anything otherwise is just foolish. So the Russians will be laughing today, and they'll be rubbing their hands with glee and trying to work out how to do something a bit bigger next time, which also will probably NATO will say is not an attack.
Okay, Glenn, do stay with us. We have some reactions coming in. The European Union has announced a series of strategic defence measures in response to escalating Russian aggression, with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen unveiling plans to boost defence cooperation. Let's listen in to what she said.
And just today we have seen a reckless and unprecedented violation of Poland and Europe's airspace by more than 10 Russian Shahid drones. Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland.
The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, also expressed full solidarity with Poland, stressing on the EU's commitment to support Ukraine, enhancing Europe's defence capabilities and raising the costs for Moscow. Meanwhile, EU Council President Antonio Costa highlighted Europe's growing investment in defence to safeguard peace and security, condemning Russia's continued aggression and airspace violations. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky also reacted by calling it deliberate and urged a strong response from allies. In the Czech Republic, Prime Minister Petr Fiala described the drone incursion as a test of NATO's defence capabilities and a threat to all of Europe posed by Putin's regime. The Czech Foreign Minister said that Russia's reckless attacks on Polish airspace demonstrates the wider threat Moscow's war poses. The Czech Republic pledged full solidarity with Poland and called for immediate reinforcement of NATO's frontline and air defences. China's foreign ministry urged all parties to avoid the conflict, allowing the battlefield violence to go beyond Ukraine's borders. Adding that Italy's foreign minister Tajani firmly condemned the strike, calling it a very serious and unacceptable event. Glenn, your thoughts there from some of the reactions that we have coming in, some stronger than others. Of course, the Czech Republic there with the particularly strong response, saying that stressing the threat for Europe as a whole here. Could this be a significant turning point in this war? Obviously, we can't speculate. However, what do you think Putin's aims are here, considering, I mean, of course, Ukraine is a huge country, and hitting that far west into the Ukrainian territory so far as to go into Europe, this certainly symbolises something.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, it symbolises what Putin has been saying all along, which is, this is a war, and it's a war on Europe, and it's a war on the West. I mean, Czech Republic have been strong throughout, and they've been supporting Ukraine solidly throughout. I mean, they've got bad memories of Russia, and so I would expect this of them. I don't think the Italian foreign minister would understand that his words about not putting boots on the ground a couple of days ago are actually part of the problem. And his weakness that he showed is actually something that Putin plays on. So him saying, him coming up now and condemning it is a bit rich at this stage. And I think that there's still too much talk from people like van der Leyen. We can do this with money, we can do that with money, but I still don't actually see the action happening. The hardness is still missing from a lot of the Europeans. Maybe that hardness will change in the next week or so. But I'm still not completely convinced when you hear something from Rutte and from NATO saying that it's not an attack. It means that there are still countries and still people that still don't understand the significance of this attack.
Yes, and Glenn, finally, do you think that we've seen the last of attacks like this? What do you think could be in the pipeline, as you've said, talked about Putin's aggression. What kind of thing do you think could occur next? What do you think that Putin has in mind here?
I don't think this is the last of these attacks. I think it's the first of these attacks. And I think that, as Putin increases the number of drones that he can put in the air, I think that he will be spreading them far and wide, not just into Ukraine. And especially if there's no actual comeback against him. And his aim is to try and separate NATO from Ukraine and separate the other countries from Ukraine. And he's not doing a bad job of it in some ways. When you hear things like the Italian minister saying that they're not going to put troops on the ground. Putin will hope that this sort of thing actually increases that sort of weakness, not decreases it. So I expect to see more of this, and maybe in different directions.
Glenn Grant, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to you, to get your insight on that. We will, of course, continue to bring you updates on that situation as it develops. For our next story, we head over to the Indo-Pacific, where in the latest developments, the Nepalese army have imposed a nationwide curfew following massive Gen Z-led protests that turned violent, leading to arson and vandalism of key government infrastructure and attacks on political leaders. In a statement issued by the Directorate of Public Relations and Information, the army says the prohibitory orders will remain in force until 5 p.m. on Wednesday, after which a curfew will be imposed across the country from 6 a.m. on Thursday. The army stated that the move was in response to threats to public security amidst political crises and violent attacks. There are reports of looting and vandalism on private property as well. The Nepalese army has called on citizens to help in protecting national integrity and in maintaining social harmony. We are now joined, we are following the situation in Nepal. Of course, we have seen widespread protests there, which, as you can see on your screens, have been occurring within the past few days. Started with social media protests, protests against social media, being blocked in the country of Nepal, which showed the likes of WhatsApp and Facebook all being banned under Nepali law. And over the last 2 days, it has seen the deaths of 19 people, but also the ousting of Nepalese Prime Minister Oli, who yesterday announced that he will be leaving his post. However, things still remain volatile in the country as hopes for things to simmer down continue. Okay, we're now joined by Major Dr. Mohammed Ali Shah, who is a geopolitical expert, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us. What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Ali Shah? How fast this has developed? The collateral, 19 people have been killed out of Nepal's mainly young population over what started as to be anti-graft protests and then ended with the ousting of the Prime Minister. Is there hopes now that this will simmer down and some stability is reached?
Right. Look at India's location strategically. All our neighbors have had trouble. You see, in the year 2021, there was a problem in Myanmar where there was a military coup. There was a problem in Afghanistan. The government had toppled. Look at 2022. Again, there was a problem in our neighborhood. Look at 2023. Again, there was a problem in our neighborhood. Look at 2024. There was a problem in Bangladesh, where Sheikh Hasina had to fled the country and she came to India. Look at 2025. Again, problem in our neighborhood in Nepal. Pakistan is also a neighbor. there's been a perpetual problem in Pakistan. It's been there, and my guess is it's going to go on till eternity. Now, the very fact is, when there is force used on young students, be it a police lathi charge or police firing, I think it should be condemned. It should not be allowed in the first place. Secondly, I don't know who advised the Nepal government, Mr. KP Sharma Oli, to ban the social media over there. Because if you see Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter is controlled by Elon Musk, Facebook by Mark Zuckerberg, YouTube, again, American controlled. Most of them were banned. TikTok was not banned. TikTok is Chinese app, so they couldn't have displeased Chinese. The mistake that Nepal has made is by getting too close to China. About 3-4 years back, there is a place of very strategic importance in Nepal called the Lipu Lake, Limpudhura, Kalapani. In that general area, the Chinese soldiers had come. They had constructed pillar number 11 and pillar number 12 illegally. And Mr. KP Sharma Oli's government had denied vehemently that no Chinese intrusion had taken place. But when through satellite imagery it was found that Chinese soldiers had come, because technology will not lie. So Nepal and India have been like brothers. Here we saw that, okay, our small brother, our younger brother, probably has lost its way, it will come back on track. So we didn't really take it too hard, too much. There are a lot of Nepalese who are working in India. We have the Nepalese soldiers in our Gurkha Rifles, in the Assam Rifles. In fact, this is the Assam Rifles competition card that I have the honor of wearing. So we have so many, the Gurungs, the Thapas, Chetris, so many Bahadurs, so many of Ranas, so many of them are there in India. Now, when a trouble like this happens in Nepal, yes, we as Nepal being a dear neighbor, we do get affected somewhere. Any neighbor get affected. Now, even though the social media ban was revoked, which means the social media came back, they reversed it, but still the protest continued. Why? Because the anger among the youth, primarily from the age group of 18 to 30, most of them, they were very, very unhappy. They were very angry that, okay,
Yes.
19 people lost their lives. Unpardonable completely. So they went on vandalism, arson, violence, which I say is never the solution. I'm never in support of arson, vandalism, a protest becoming violent, never. But then, again, when Nepal government, they did not really communicate with the protesters. What they required was they should have come forward, had a dialogue with them, let's resolve it, let's talk it out, do it. But no, they just banned it, the communication minister banned it.
Okay.
Then Nepalese Prime Minister KP Sharma
I'm sorry, we have run out of time. Please do stay with us, Major General. We move over to West Asia for our next story, where Israel carried out an unprecedented airstrike on Tuesday in Doha, targeting senior Hamas leaders in a residential neighborhood of the Qatari capital. The strike has drawn swift international condemnation from across the world. Russia also today denounced it as a violation of international law and the United Nations Charter. Moreover, China has strongly condemned the attack, while Japan has voiced concern, calling it a threat to regional security. Let's listen in to their reactions.
中方严厉谴责昨天发生在卡塔尔首都多哈的袭击行为，坚决反对以色列侵犯卡塔尔领土主权和国家安全的行径。
今回、イスラエルによる攻撃が行われたことは、外交努力を妨げ、カタールの主権と安全、ひいては地域の安定を脅かすものであり、我が国として強く非難をいたします。我が国はカタールへの連帯を表明するとともに、イスラエルに対し直ちに交渉に立ち戻り、停戦の実現と人質の解放に向けて誠実に取り組むよ 改めて強く求めます。
Meanwhile, Hamas says 6 people were killed, including the son of a senior negotiator, but insists its top leadership survived the strike. Qatar has always also condemned the strike as a serious threat to its sovereignty and security and says investigations are underway at the highest level. We will, of course, bring you all updates coming out of that situation as we get them. However, now we move over to North America, where the US Supreme Court will decide on the legality of President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, a major test of his executive power and trade agenda. The court has fast-tracked the case, with arguments set for November. This comes as a lower court had ruled that Trump overstepped his authority by using the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose the tariffs, though they remain in effect. Trump has used tariffs to pressure countries like China, Canada and Mexico, arguing they address national security and drug trafficking. We're now joined by Major Dr. Mohammed Ali Shah. He is a geopolitical expert and he joins us live for New Delhi. We don't have much time, Major General. If you could just quickly give us your thoughts on this situation coming out of the United States.
Right. You know, President Trump, when he was coming into power, I remember the statement made by him, in fact, this year itself in January. He said, if he comes to power, he will stop all the wars. He will send out the illegal immigrants. He had 3 main objectives. There were many other points, and one was on tariffs. Now tell me one thing, we can ask our audience, 25% of tariffs imposed on India. Furthermore, 25% more imposed, which means 50% tariffs imposed on India. Is it fair? We have so many NRIs living in US. They are living in constant fear. I hope I'm not deported. I hope my citizenship is not snatched. I don't think people who have citizenship need to worry about it. I don't think that can be done. The president cannot suddenly be a dictator and, see, he gives a statement and he turns around after giving one statement. He says something, does something else. That's rather unpredictable. At least Kim Jong-un in Korea, we find the dictator at least sticks to what he's saying. I'm not appreciating Kim Jong-un. But if you are a dictator, be a dictator. You cannot say something and do something else. So now, the very fact is, it has really affected India-America relationship. We had very good terms with Americans. We had our leadership, we always revered the Americans. Everyone does. They are superpower. They are the power of the dollar. Everyone looks up to America. But then, when you have a global leader sitting on top at the helm, and it is rather irresponsible when you are giving out a loose tweet as well, for a small thing, for anything. It's rather irresponsible. So I think it's still not too late. It's still not too late. India and America are still friends. There's nothing, we don't take things to heart. I think things can be amended still.
Yes.
So I always feel positively. I think things can still be amended.
Yes, thank you very much, Major General Ali Shah, for joining us here on the programme. We now move over to Europe once again, where France is facing a fresh wave of unrest as the Block Everything protest movement causes major highway disruptions across the country. The movement called for a general strike and nationwide shutdown on the 10th of September 2025 to oppose the austerity measures proposed by the government of François Bayrou. Dozens were arrested earlier on Wednesday as demonstrators blocked roads in cities like Bordeaux, Toulouse, Lyon and Paris. Protesters say France's political system is broken. The unrest follows major political shake-ups just 2 days after Parliament ousted Prime Minister François Bayrou, and President Macron has now also appointed his 5th Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, in under 2 years. Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau says 80,000 security forces have been deployed across France, including 6,000 in Paris. Authorities fear the protests could grow in the coming days. Let's in fact listen to what some of them had to say.
C'était ce qui était prévu hein, pour le 10 septembre. Voilà, moi je suis plutôt d'accord, donc voilà, j'ai pris ma voiture, je savais que je risquais d'être bloquée.
Comment dire, ça casse pas. Tant qu'il n'y a pas de violence.
We are now joined by Alexander Ciel. He is a French journalist and he joins us live from London. We are seeing these compelling visuals, Alexander, of these protests going on across France, causing major public disruption along French highways. We, of course, know that the new French Prime Minister is Macron.
Serious, these protests, they highlight deep public discontent, anger among the French society, not only with austerity, but also with political leadership. If participation grows and blockades persists, this could evolve into a long-running challenge to President Macron, and similar to the Yellow Vest crisis. And so we'll have to wait to see what Sébastien Lecornu does. He's going to take over power soon. He will replace François Bayrou. He has to name a government. We'll have to see who will be in his government. So these are unstable times for France.
Yes, Alexander Ciel, thank you very much for joining us and giving us that insight going on in France right now. Well, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.